There's a lot of things going on tonight as we hit the air. Jeff is the name, Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crock. Chris has been filling in for Casey Bartholomew from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. earlier in the day. He'll be back on next week also, Monday, Tuesday. I think Monday and Tuesday doing that, and maybe Wednesday. I'll be sitting in for Chris next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night. He'll be back in this chair on Thursday night, covering the nighttime show back to his normal time slot after the first of the year. But you got me for the next couple nights, Westside Jeff. You know my story. If you've listened to me much, I'm born and raised up in Ohio. I just not a professional radio kind of guy, talk show guy. I just a guy with a common sense opinion, and I get a chance to sit here and give it to you. I follow the news, read it, watch many different TV networks. I watch CNN, and quite honestly, I watch CNN, MSNBC as much as anything because I know what Fox is going to say. And I want to get all viewpoints. I read all the different trades and publications, catch up on that. Like you don't know what to trust. It's hard to understand. What do we believe? What do we trust? Because the news is so slanted these days. So I listen, I read all different angles. I find myself analyzing it and then having an opinion, formulating an opinion. And that's what talk radio is. You formulate an opinion and you share it, and that's what I get a chance to do. So I appreciate the opportunity to do that. Two things that stick out to me here in the last couple hours that I got to start with. Most people throughout the day, a lot of times you'll turn on the radio because you're like, okay, what I missed today? I didn't catch up with everything. But I'll turn on and see what's the latest. What's going on today? What's the news? What are people talking about? That's what I love. Love talking about what people are talking about. Two things that stuck out to me that I think you're going to hear people talking about in particular is, and I saw it on the push notifications today, at about 3 o'clock, got a notification from the WBAP app that the Mega Millions drawing for tonight, Mega Millions has grown now to $1.22 billion. Details through the evening here on WBAP. We'll be covering that along the way. Won't surprise me if it actually goes up more than that. Listen, what's the difference between 1.1 and $1.2 billion? $1 million, right? But in the end, hell, you won't complain about hitting it even if it's 1.2 or 1.1. Makes me ask a question. Do you know anybody, who do you know that's ever hit a lottery? And how big of a lottery was it? I actually have a cousin that hit a really large lottery, $200 million. There's a story there, and I'll tell you that in about 15 minutes. Give me 15 minutes, I'll tell you the story. A cousin that hit a big one, kind of, and I'll tell you the rest of the story. Give me 15 minutes. I mentioned the WBAP app. If you don't have the app on your phone, you're really missing out on a lot. I would encourage you to open up your phone, go to your app store, type in WBAP in the app store, download it, and put it on your home screen. You can use the app to listen to the radio. You can actually listen to previous recorded shows, what we call podcasts. But to me, the value of that, as much as anything, is quite honestly through the day, I regularly get notifications from the WBAP news team with breaking news. And a lot of times it's usually before I get anything from AP, Reuters, BBC, Bloomberg, MSNBC, CNN, any of the other news sources. I usually get it from BAP first. So if you don't have it, you're missing out on some really, really good content along the way. The second one that popped up for me today occurred at about 5 o'clock or so today. And that is former CBS TV sports anchor Greg Gumbel dies at the age of 78. Greg Gumbel. When I think of Greg Gumbel, I think about the guy when I was younger. I remember watching him on CBS. He was, I'm not an avid major baseball guy, but I enjoy turning on a game for a few minutes and see what's going on. Greg Gumbel, I remember him when I was a younger guy calling games on the weekends. When I was around the house, I used to turn them on sometimes, and it was Greg Gumbel back in the day calling them on CBS when CBS had the baseball games. A lot of times it was Yankees. It was the big teams around the country that he was calling, and he was a great play-by-play guy. And then the other thing more recently, when I think of Greg Gumbel, in my mind, I think of him as almost Mr. March Madness. It was always in March coming into the NCAA, March Madness tournament. He was always that guy that kind of anchored everything going into March Madness. The selection Sunday shows and who goes where, what teams play what. And he was always great at managing big athletes, big names, big stars. Clark Kellogg was one of those guys. All these guys that are just I'll call them ball hogs. They all want to talk. They all want to share their opinion. He did a really good job of keeping them in check. Greg Gumbel died today at the age of 78 from cancer. Again, I found that out literally. It's funny. I went through my phone, looked at all the notifications I had, and the very first notification I had about Greg Gumbel passing was from WBAP. So again, if you do not have the WBAP app on your phone, you should load it because it's free. It gives you access to all the notifications. You can keep up to speed on what's going on throughout the day, and especially when you're on the road. If you are out of touch for a few minutes, for a while, you want to just turn life off for a while and not be following the news 24/7 sometimes, the app will keep you up to speed because you'll get notifications along the way of significant stories. So again, if you don't have it, go to your app store, download WBAP app, and you can listen to the radio station through the app. You can also listen to podcasts, previous recorded shows. So whether it be this show or Chris Crock show or Casey or James, the James show, any of our guys, you can always hear the shows back afterwards because it's on the app. WBAP is the app. Go to the app store, download it, and you're good to go. Again, Greg Gumbel, dead at the age of 78. And Mega Millions tonight. Over $1 billion up for grabs. I'm not a lottery player typically, but I went and bought tickets tonight because there's no way in heck I'm going to let a drawing go down and not have a piece of that. Just you never know. You just never know. A little bit later, I want to get into talking about lottery. And I want you thinking about for a moment is who do you know that has won anything in the lottery? And I'm not talking just $2 or $4. I've done that. In fact, today I cashed a $12 ticket, for God's sakes. I bought a ticket for the Mega Millions this last drawing, which was what was it, Tuesday night or Monday night? Tuesday night, I forget what night it was, but I had a $12 winner, so I reinvested that into tonight's lottery. And I have a cousin though that hit a was a piece of a pretty big lottery take back in the 80s or 90s. I forget what year it was. I have to look that up, but I'll tell you that story a little bit later. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock. Got to hit a break in about 3 minutes. After the break, about 3 minutes, I want to get into other news of the day. And that includes a story about Trump's border czar coming in, and that is Homan, Tom Homan, that did wide-ranging interviews across multiple media outlets and kind of gave us a peek under the hood of what Trump and the administration will be doing with regard to immigration and deportations. And he talked about his views of potentially using the military as part of the infrastructure to solve that problem. He talks about military bases. Could aid deportation efforts. That's coming up in 3.5 minutes. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock. Partnering with me tonight is my buddy Garrett Tarango. Garrett, I got to tell you, thank you very much for being a great asset for me. I appreciate all your help along the way. Thank you, Garrett. I appreciate your partnership. Also in the newsroom, Sean Allen. Sean will be keeping us up to date on the stories top and bottom of the hour and be talking about, we'll keep you up to speed on things as they go down. I've always said, by the way, that the devil is in the details, right? I mean, you know that. It's just common sense. Devil's in the details. Governing can be hard. Writing laws and writing policy can be the easy part of governing. But executing those laws, executing those policies is really the hard part. That's where the devil gets in the details. Team Trump's going to take over the White House in a couple weeks. And he won the election on the backs of migration, of illegal immigration, of deportation. The message that was sent to him was very clear. We don't want wide open borders and everybody and their brother coming into our country. We want some controls. So I got to ask you this question. What's your recommendation? Let me put you in a position. You are now in the Trump administration, starting in 3 weeks. I ask you, what would you do? What's your recommendation? You're sitting in a room with Tom Homan, who's going to be the new border czar, and Donald Trump. And they look to you and say, okay, you live in Texas or somewhere around Texas, because many people outside of Texas listen to us on this radio station. What recommendation do you have? How would you fix it? What are specific things that you would do that would be better for our country and our state and our community? Because it's not as easy as just you can't just walk through the country. You can't send the military across the country and say, do you have a card or not? If you're not a citizen, you get in this truck and we're going to ship you across the border. It sounds like that'd be cool to do, right? But you can't. It's not possible. So my question to you is, what do you expect? What do you want to see done? What are your real expectations? Trump all along has said he's going to deport. What's your expectation? Listen, he's not going to find everybody. He's not going to grab anybody that's here illegally and ship them back. You just can't. First of all, we don't even know how many people are in this country who are here illegally. Best guesstimate I've ever seen is 15, 18, 20 million people. Right? You're not going to round them up and send them back. So I ask you, it's easy to sit on the sidelines and say, fix the problem. We know what the problem is. But it's hard to talk about the details of what you do to fix the problem. And I ask you, what do you do? What are specific steps that you would recommend? What are specific recommendations you'd make? What are specific steps that if you're in that room with Trump and Homan on how to fix our illegal immigrant problem in this country, what specifically do you do? My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. My phone number is 800-288-9227. 800-288-WBAP. What's your recommendation to fix the problem? And what would you do? How would you do it? Because it's not as easy as just grabbing people and sending them across the border. You can't slingshot them over there. You got to have a process. Again, we know what we want. Getting there is the difficult part. So yesterday, by the way, 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-WBAP. Yesterday, Donald Trump's border czar, incoming border czar, Tom Homan, did several wide-ranging interviews. One of the things he said is that the military bases could aid in deportation effort. Trump's team is looking at using military bases to detain migrants and military planes to boost deportations. That's according to Trump's border czar, Tom Homan. He said that late yesterday. Homan said it's something that's certainly on the table. He said that today in a wide-ranging interview with many media assets. He said, we're waiting to see what Congress is going to give us for funding. So that's really what Homan's saying is, you know what, we've got a lot of options on the table. That's really what he's saying. We've got a lot of options, But we need to see what the new Congress is thinking on the way in, what kind of funding they give us to execute it for them on the way out. Trump's team plans to declare a national emergency on immigration on day one of his presidency. He has confirmed that, which would allow the administration to divert money from the Pentagon for immigration purposes. Now, military troops can't, by law, have military troops make arrests on U.S. soil. They're not empowered to do that. But Trump's immigration advisors hope that the military can provide assistance in other ways to drive up deportations. The president-elect's promised mass deportation effort was the major pillar of his campaign and his election. So I got to ask you the question: how do you feel about Team Trump using the military to aid in cleaning up the migration problem in this country? Are you in favor or are you not in favor? And what's your plan? What's your recommendation? What would you do differently? What assets and resources would you use? 800-288-9227 is my number. 800-288-WBAP. My buddy Garrett Tarango will take the call and vet it out, and you'll now get a chance to talk. You can also hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff on Facebook, on X, and Instagram. Again, go to Facebook, go to X, go to Instagram, type in Westside Jeff. You can shoot me a message that way also. Now, President Biden and former President Obama used military bases for immigration purposes before, but they used them to hold large numbers of unaccompanied migrant children who had crossed the border before releasing them to their family members. Biden also housed evacuees from Afghanistan on bases as refugee agencies worked to find them more permanent homes. Some Haitian and some Cuban migrants also have been detained on military bases in the 80s and 90s, but no effort's really been made to round up people living in the U.S. en masse since 1950 under Eisenhower. Trump's potential use of military assets could be more expansive. So we've not, since the 50s or so, had a en masse example of authorities rounding up illegals and sending them back across the border. Homan, in his interviews today, said he views the military as, quote, a force multiplier. So it could help with transportation, administrative duties, intelligence analysis, and building infrastructure such as large tents that could serve as short-term detention facilities. He was asked whether the National Guard from Republican-led states like Texas can be deployed to states led by Democrats, as Trump's other advisors had suggested during the election cycle. Homan said he wasn't sure. He said, I'll leave that up to the lawyers. So as you can tell, the lawyers are going to get involved. So I ask you a question. Got to hit Bob in the Hour News in about 3 minutes on the other side of we'll take some calls. Lewis from Northwest Ohio, I see you on the line. I'll get to you in a few minutes, so bear with me on this, Lewis. After the news, when we get to some phone calls, my question to you is, what would you do? Put yourself in control. It's easy to sit back in the cheap seats and say, "Here, go fix it." It's hard to sit in those cheap seats and say, here's 2 or 3 or 4 specific things I would do, 2 or 3 or 4 specific steps I would take, recommendations on what you would do to fix the illegal immigration and deportations. What would you do? What wouldn't you do? Again, Tom Homan did several interviews yesterday and today with media assets across the country. And he's talking about potentially using the military as part of that. The other thing he gets asked specifically is, how deep are you going to go? And his answer is, depends on the new Congress and what kind of money they give us, because they got multiple plans, multiple levels, which I get and I understand. But my question also comes back to you on this. What do you expect? If we're sitting here in 6 months and you're disappointed because of the lack of effort this administration is going to put into deporting folks out of the state and out of the country, what does that look like? And what would pleasantly surprise you? What would it take for you 6 months from now to call me and say, Jeff, they nailed it. They exceeded my expectation. Couldn't have gone better. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. You can Pick up the phone and call me. I want to hear what your perspective is. What's your opinion? 800-288-9227. It's 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff. 2 minutes, we got Sean Allen in the newsroom with an update on some of the news stories going on that we've been talking about. On the other side of it, we'll take your calls with Lewis, Frank, and Premish. We'll get to you guys right after the news. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and FM at 93.3 WBAP. So saw stories today that Tom Homan, Trump's new border czar, has done several media interviews. First of all, kudos for him for doing it, because our previous border czar, I think that was Kamala Harris, supposed to be, and also Mayorkas, did nothing. But at least he's getting that's transparency. And my question to you is this. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. My question to you is this. What is it your expectation is? What does success look like to you? What will make you happy? 6 months from now, when I'm sitting here phoning for Chris Crock, by the way, Chris is back a week from yesterday. He's back on Thursday night next week. I'll be filling in until then. Chris is doing Casey Bartholomew's show. We're talking about the immigration plan from the Trump administration because Tom Homan came out, did several interviews. And my question is, what will success look like to you? What will it take when I sit here in 6 months, when Chris is taking a week off, and we're sitting here talking about the border and whether Trump nailed it or not, whether Trump is successful in the immigration plan or not? What does that look like? And what recommendations do you have? What would Trump calls you right now. He calls you while you and I are talking and says, hey, what do you recommend? What are you telling him? 2-3 solid things that would help solve the plan. Because again, policy is easy to write. Laws are easy to write. Execution of them is the difficult part. Devil's in the details. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock. Chris is back a week from yesterday. He's back next Thursday night. Let's talk to Frank from Corsicana. Frank, thanks for listening to the show. It's Chris Crock Show. You're talking to Jeff, Westside Jeff. What's your opinion? Let's go to Frank. Frank got disconnected or hung up there. Let's go to Buzz in Dallas. Buzz, thanks for listening. Sorry to keep you on through the news. What's your thought on what that looks like?
I've got a real simple solution, and I think it'll take care of over half the illegal immigration. I think Trump should come out and say, we're going to focus on the criminal aliens first, but while we're doing that, we're going to give you 6 months to self-deport. If you do self-deport, you will go on a list where you're eligible to apply to come back in like anybody else. But if you don't self-deport within the 6 months, you're going on a list and you will never be allowed back in the United States.
I like what you're thinking. Go after the criminals first.
Self-deport so that they could try to get back in a legal way. It looks at it like, hey, I can't do anything, but I don't want to ruin my future, so I'm going to leave so I have a chance to at least come back in.
Frank, I love what you're saying. I don't think a lot of people would self-deport, but I think that what you're doing is what that does is draw a line in the sand. And the fear of the threat, the fear of reality. Listen, the reason you don't drive 90 miles an hour up and down 35 is because you know the cops are patrolling it, right? But if they're not, what the hell?
Well, and also you're getting your travel back to your country of origin because they're going to have to pay for that anyway. So if you self-deport, turn yourself in, they'll send you back to where you're going to go because they were going to have to do that anyway.
So you're recommending the government send you back and pay for it and fly you back or travel?
Because they're going to do that anyway.
Yeah.
But now you don't have to go find them.
Like the way you're thinking.
Yep.
Like the way you're thinking, Buzz. I like the way anything else you got to say about that?
That's my main thing. I've been thinking about it, but don't know how to get that over to Holman or anybody like that. But I think that's a great way to start out. It's just a positive way to get it done.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. You just got the word out to Homan, because trust me, the government listens to this radio station. It's a nationwide signal. You can hear it from California to Ohio to Florida. The only thing you typically can't hear the station over the air on is going to be in the D.C. area and up in Seattle, but everywhere else you can. So trust me, there are folks in government listening to us right now. They'll hear your recommendations. So thank you for calling, and thanks for being part of the show. Buzz, have a great night. Let's Frank, thank you. I lost you there a moment ago. I know you were on hold and something happened, but didn't get you. So Frank from Corsicana, give you another shot here. You there?
Yes, I am.
Tell me what you think.
Thank you, Westside. I like what that guy just said very much as well. I want to preface that. But what I think they should do is the Trump administration should immediately set it up, get together with the states, and any type of ID that we use for anything, if it even goes to the banks, driver's license, whatever form it is, or these debit cards that they might be using, I think they should look into that and monitor that, and go through a little pre-selection and screening with them, and bring them up if they look like a high probability, and offer them, to get out, and otherwise there will be a consequence if they do not, cooperate and work with them. I think one of the things they should do is, for taking all our taxpayer dollars or whatever percentage they took, I think that they should take enough for them to travel to ensure they get home, and they should take the excess thereof for those that will be leaving with more financially than that, rather than pilfer us on the way out the door. And I think that, this should be implemented and looked into right away. In any way, with any form of identification, consider this and get with the states, even go to the county, city level, and work it on through as much as they'll cooperate, Jeff.
Okay. Frank, thank you for holding and through the news and coming back after we disconnected you. I appreciate your opinion on that. Thanks for weighing in on that. Let's talk to Trey in Duncanville. Trey, thanks for listening. It's good to talk to you again, man. What's your recommendation here?
Well, I have several recommendations on several levels. First of all, no more access to education, K through 12, free education. That's gone. They can't use our public school system. If they want to go to college, they do not pay in-state tuition. They'll pay out-of-state tuition. It's not fair for people who come, like from Colorado, Ohio, Florida, come to a university in Texas and pay out-of-state tuition when you have all these illegals that are paying in-state tuition. And it's also not fair for people who come from different countries that pay exorbitant amounts for education, like people from China or the Middle East. That's the education issue. Secondly, no access to medical care. Hospitals, regular doctors, no Medicare, no Medicaid. Absolutely not. We as taxpayers pay for all that stuff, and it's paid for by the citizens, so only the citizens you should be allowed to use it. Thirdly, no more driver's license. You must be a citizen, or you must come here under legal circumstances. If you come from like Vietnam to study engineering, and you need a car to drive, under certain circumstances, yes. But if you just come here illegally, no. Fourthly, no more food stamps or SNAP or WIC or any of that stuff. If you're not here legally, you don't get a dime of that. Fourthly, no more driver's license, no more Social Security cards. Put an end to all that. Fifthly, no more access to cars unless like I say, unless you're a legal citizen or you come under certain circumstances. No way. You must not have access to housing either if you're not here legally. Those are my general recommendations.
Trey, thanks for listening. I appreciate you being part of the show. Thanks for calling in on that. We're talking about immigration, and Tom Homan, the new border czar coming in under Trump, has done several media interviews in the last 48 hours. He did several today, and he talked about this, and he got grilled about what the Trump administration deportation plan looks like. One of the things he said is using the military for it is not off the table. So my question to you is this. What does your plan look like? If you're called in on it, what do you recommend? And so I want to know what you recommend. How would you solve the problem if you're part of the Trump administration or asked to participate? And secondly is, how are you judging success? What does success look like to you? How will you know in 6 months that the plan is working? What's it going to take for you to say, Jeff, I'm happy with what's going on in the deportation plan and cleaning up our borders? And what will it take for you to say to me, I'm totally disgusted. It's worse than it was. I don't like it. I want to hear your perspective. What do you expect? Because many of you have not really thought through the expectations. And that's a question I want to pose to you. I want you thinking about what's your expectation and how do you get there? My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. My phone number is 800-288-9227. That's 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff. Again, I'm Westside Jeff sitting in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Talking about immigration, Tom Homan has done several interviews across multiple media assets the last couple of days. He's been very transparent, very vocal. I've seen him on Fox, multiple TV networks, CNN, read about him in several publications, New York Times, Washington Post. He's been out there. He's been out selling his plan. And you know what? Kudos to him for doing that. Tom Homan, one of the things he said, it's Trump's new borders are. One of the things he said is not ruling out the military as part of the immigration plan. He's been getting grilled about on it, but he's answering the questions. He was asked if border wall funding was still necessary, even if it ends up taking away from resources needed for mass deportation effort. Homan responded, I think it has to be part of the mix, right? He went on to say the border is going to help slow down the incoming. You've got to plug the holes to stop water coming in the boat so it all works together, he said. I totally agree with him. Kudos for him. Kudos for getting out there and doing it. 800-288-9227 is the number, 800-288-WBAP. Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock. Let's talk to Al from Dallas. Al, thanks for holding for a few minutes. You're on the Chris Crock Show with Westside Jeff. What's your expectation of what Trump's going to do with the border wall, and how do you know what success looks like?
Okay, yes, thank you, Westside Jeff. Appreciate it. I want to, first of all, say that, yes, it's absolutely necessary that they go after the criminal elements first. And after that, they can work their way towards people who are here illegally. But first of all, the criminal elements, and that border wall is a must, because that slows down the cartels. It's an obstruction for them to operate freely. And I'm going to say something that maybe you haven't touched on in your program. And I have first-hand knowledge. I was working as a interpreter, translator in Mexico for the U.S. Embassy. And I had to leave because I was threatened by the cartels and actually went through a very horrific situation. Almost got kidnapped. Now, the H2, the H2A, H2B visas, the work visas, there's elements infiltrated in the U.S. government that have created ghost companies here in the U.S., and they are receiving the majority of the visas that are issued for these purposes, these work visas. The cartels turn around and get these visas, and they sell them to the highest bidders in Mexico, going from sometimes even $20,000 to $25,000 a piece. What they do is people would rather pay that than having to go through the coyotes at the border and risking their lives and their families' lives, because later on they're extorted for more money. So one of the things that Doge, that I believe that Doge, that Elon Musk should do, is look into that. And there's workers, like, for example, construction workers.
people in Mexico that are good-natured people who do, like, for example, the sheetrock application, which is a work that is really hard, and it requires a lot of stamina, and very few people do that kind of work because it's very demanding and very taxing on your body. So there's people who want to work in the fields, but jobs that people here we're not interested in doing. We're interested in doing some other type of more intellectual work or something that's not as demanding, and just to make sure that these visas are issued to people to companies, real companies that are bringing in that labor that's needed here for companies, and that's affordable, that to bring in and get all those lottery and all that garbage out of the system. And I have many ideas that could help the administration in that respect with first-hand knowledge. So, that's something I wanted to bring my 2 cents into the conversation, because many things need to be fixed. Many things need to be fixed in order to get this thing straight in our country.
A lot of things need fixed. Al from Dallas,
Yes.
Thank you for calling. I appreciate your weighing in your opinion. And I think you're right on target. We do need migrant workers. We do need workers from other countries. We don't have enough employees in this country, and that presents a challenge from a housing issue. And by the way, coming up in a little while, I want to talk about housing issue, because HUD released something today that just frosted my you-know-what. We'll talk about that in the next hour. Coming up in about 4 minutes, by the way, have some breaking news that Sean Allen's going to be, he's working on. He shot me a quick note, said he's got a story on the DOJ suing Texas over new immigration laws, and there's a story about that coming up here in about 4 minutes. He'll have that story. We'll talk about that in the next hour. Also, we're talking about immigration. Tom Homan was interviewed by multiple media outlets. One of the things Homan said is he doesn't have a target in mind for deportations as far as the number of people, because it really would depending on the funding that they have from Congress. But he plans to focus on migrants who crossed illegally, who have criminal backgrounds, or those who have already removal orders from a judge. So many of you are saying get rid of the criminals first, those who have broken the law, that have come in contact with law enforcement. That's what Tom Homan's saying. He's saying that that's what he's going to do, a part of that. But he was pressed and asked about, in the interviews today, one of the interviews today, Tom Homan, we're talking about immigration and what the Trump administration is going to do. His border czar, Tom Homan, was asked, what are you going to do about what they call dreamers? And that is those children who were brought to the U.S. illegally as children, but now known as dreamers. And he was pressed on whether migrants brought them in and what he's going to do about those, and whether they should be worried about deportation. And Homan said he dodged the answer. He dodged the question. He said criminal aliens is priority one. But he went on to say that Trump has said he would be open to a bipartisan deal to protect dreamers, and I agree with that. I concur with that. You can't just throw everybody out of the country. I hate the word amnesty, but in the end, you can't deport everybody. You got to have some kind of a plan. I don't know what that plan exactly looks like, but there's got to be some kind of a plan for those they call them dreamers, but those kids that were brought in illegally, had been here for 8, 10, 12 years. You just can't throw them out. That's my opinion. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Kroc. 800-288-9227. See a couple calls. We'll get to those after the top of the hour news. Sean Allen in the newsroom about 2 minutes with an update on a story that affects us in Texas and border and the immigration and what the DOJ is doing, something that just went down tonight. He'll have that story about 2 minutes. On the other side of it, we'll continue the conversation, and we'll talk a little bit about the lottery. Who do you know that's won any amount of money in a lottery? I tweet from a guy, and I say, hey, call the station when I talk about this after top of the hour, and he's going to tell us the story. Hopefully he gets a chance to call in. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Kroc on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.